Do you like adventure, activity, wonder, danger, horror, pain, suffering, agony, death, disease, death, angel food cake? Ow! You parasite!
Indie animation has come a long way, man. From the earlier versions of the internet, we've had the beginnings of some already favorite and nostalgic cartoons, like Homestar Runner debuting in the year 2000, the constant rise of Newgrounds during this time, and then YouTube really just exploding in popularity and gave so many creators and artists their time in the spotlight with their cartoons. Like, just think of all the amazing animations that came out that decade. Salad Fingers, Happy Tree Friends, Charlie the Unicorn, Ed's World, and this launched some indie studios to come and create their own cartoons too. Mondo Media, Channel Frederator, Spindle Horse, now that's a huge indie studio right there. Vivian Madrano, or Vivzipop, has pretty much made a name for herself these past couple of years, known responsibly for her Helliverse cartoons, like Hell of a Boss, and her main attraction Hazbin Hotel, which has gotten backed up by Bento Box Entertainment and A24. Zoo-wee mama! And then there's Glitch Productions, the other giant of YouTube. If Spindle Horse provides that dark, edgy, emo aesthetic and goth-like sensibility, Glitch Productions has a variety of millennial-inspired digital animation with a true sense of meme culture sprinkled in. Actually, let's look more into Glitch, shall we? Previously known as Glitchy Boy, two brothers, who I know I'm gonna butcher their names, first started working on their first web series, SMG4. A Garry's Mod-inspired Mario show, with many more to follow. Most of these earlier shows were written and created by the brothers, but it wasn't until they started collaborating with other creators where the company truly shined. Murder Drones, created by Liam Vickers, was a huge success for Glitch, and sparked a cult fanbase for the show. Its dark humor, themes of dystopia, violence combined with fantasy, it was all wrapped up in a bow that made such a good story. And let's not forget all the new pilots that hopefully get greenlit too. The Gaslight District, Knights of Guinevere, Gameaverse, ooh, now that's my personal favorite out of the three. I love Jay Schlatt screaming his ear off.
Oh my god!
But you already know where this is going. As much as I love these new projects that are cooking up, Glitch Productions' magnum opus has been such a huge milestone not just for indie animation, but possibly for the whole medium in general. A paradigm shift in the industry, and the most talked about cartoon as of right now, as in June and July 2026. It's time I finally talk about the Amazing Digital Circus.
Thank goodness this is all a dream, right, Pomni?
Holy Cosmo, was this a spectacle to behold. I kid you not, every episode felt like an event as we patiently waited for the next installment. And now that it's finally over, there's just an empty void now. What the heck, Glitch? What am I supposed to watch now? Oh, yeah, that's right. Still though, where would we be without the show? Creator Gooseworks has been around the YouTube space for quite some time, starting in the early 2010s remixing and remaking classic Nintendo music and giving her own little spin on it. It wasn't until 2018 where Gooseworks started working on animation, with her first, I could be wrong here, cartoon titled A Crummy Commercial. From there, she started growing popularity with a couple of unique videos like Little Run Mo, Elaine the Bounty Hunter, Dento Takes the Stairs, and The Darlie Boxman Show.
Why are you so mad at me? Okay, that's it, you little son of a bitch!
Huh, that guy sounds awfully familiar. He probably won't show up again in any of Gooseworks' projects. One thing you gotta give Gooseworks credit for is her unique style in animation. They're very zany and cartoonish, given that her signature use in rectangular shapes gives off a striking and modernized look to her characters. And those covers she did on Nintendo music back then paid off, as she became a composer for Vivzipop's first season of Hazbin Hotel, and the pilot for Hell of a Boss. It wasn't until around 2022 when Goose decided to pitch a new series to the new Glitch Productions at the time, conveying a story about a group of humans who are trapped in this circus-themed virtual simulation with an overseeing and powerful AI, in hopes of trying to make it back into the real world. And that was the Amazing Digital Circus. Inspired by early CGI elements of the 90s, along with the story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which we will definitely get to, the first episode of the Digital Circus burst into virality, ultimately greenlighting the whole project into a full-fledged miniseries. So, what truly is the Amazing Digital Circus?
How the fuck should I know?
In this new simulation, the Digital Circus spawns a new member to the crew after putting on a headset. A female court jester who is renamed Pomni after forgetting her real name. Pretty much all of the time, the newest member goes on an existential crisis after forgetting their real identity and tries to find a way to get out. And this definitely happens to Pomni. Along with Pomni are 5 other humans trapped in the simulation. Ragatha, a kind and optimistic ragdoll. Gangle, a timid ribbon-like avatar with interchangeable masks. Keener, a keen chess piece who is the longest surviving human in the circus. Jax, a purple rabbit who is a trickster and bully to most of the humans. And Zubul, a deadpan snarker who refuses to participate in many of the adventures that the crew goes on. And wow, this is definitely a Gooseworks design right there. Upon these 6 humans, they are inhabited by the AI remaster Caine, who organizes the adventures to keep the humans inside happy, although this causes more distress than what he hopes. Oh, also he has an AI assistant named Bubble, voiced by Gooseworks herself.
What should I do?
You should die. You should throw a beach party.
Why do you swear now?
So, obviously, as the series progresses, we see how these characters develop every episode, and how their interactions with others, as well as their own backstory, showcase this great ensemble. Not to mention, every episode just feels important to the story. Obviously, the pilot here represents the overall scope of the circus, and the introduction of these characters. But episode 2 onward is where we really get existential. NPCs start to realize that they're not actually real, certain characters are more sane in certain locations, therapy sessions go awry, experiences of manic depression and suicidal tendencies, that's just the first half. Lore dumping, friendship tension, emotional manipulation, the beginnings of abstraction, broken promises, feelings of hopelessness, the possibilities of escapism. There's a lot to unpack. Let's be real, the characters are truly the standouts of this whole series, no question. But who to pick first? Oh, he's cool, I guess. He's voiced by Zach Hadel, that's kinda funny.
Hey there, if you want to find my sunken treasure chest, you'll have to try better than that.
I would have hit him, dude. I was about to hit him so hard, but my arm is so freaking sore from the gym or whatever, like...
Okay, no funny games. Let's talk about our main character, Pomni. Pomni kind of matters more than just the main character than what we realized. She's pretty much the emotional anchor for many of the others' feelings, the narrative catalyst to keep things going, and the thematic lens through which we, the audience, experience the surreal digital nightmare of the show. Pomni enters the circus the same way every human does. They get confused, they're immediately terrified, they desperately try to understand the rules of the world that refuses to make sense. She's the only character at the time whose arrival we witnessed, and that's deliberate. And obviously, being the audience surrogate, we see through her perspective on how the circus operates and the emotional weight of being trapped in a digital world with no escape. As a matter of fact, I do believe Pomni to be one of the most psychologically rich characters in indie animation right now. Her design with the wide eyes, trembling posture, constantly darting attention, reflects her internal state. She's not quirky or comedic like the other humans, but rather a portrait of someone barely holding on. Or maybe someone that's about to abstract? Luckily, there are some characters that can help her out in this dilemma, like Ragatha. I would consider Ragatha the heart of the show, a character whose warmth, resilience, and instinct to care for others makes her essential to this show's tone. Now, of course, this isn't always a good thing for her, as she can get overprotective at times, leading some characters to distance themselves from her, which is probably why Pomni kind of took over as the crying shoulder. But I do still think that Ragatha's overall kindness towards others is a survival mechanism for the group. I mean, without her, we would probably have Pomni still act a little worrisome. Speaking of worrisome, Gangle. Gangle has got to be one of the most relatable characters on the show. She's a very real, very human kind of sadness. One that isn't dramatic or loud, but quiet, persistent, and deeply vulnerable. Her design, her behavior, and her emotional arc all work together to create a character who feels painfully familiar to anyone who's ever struggled to hold themselves together, myself included. Heck, her entire design communicates fragility. She's made of ribbon, thin, bendable, easily twisted, and her face is a mask that cracks, breaks, and falls apart easily. She pretty much has to give up her happy mask most of the time because her sad mask is the most durable of the two. This isn't subtle symbolism either. She's constantly trying to hold herself together, but she breaks easily, often without warning. And when she repairs herself, it's just a never-ending cycle. Now, just like Pomni and Ragatha's relationship, Gangle also has someone to look up to. Zooble is honestly one of the most quietly powerful characters in the circus. While she's often sarcastic, detached, and seemingly unfazed by the chaos around her, her design and behavior reveal a deeper emotional truth. Zooble is a character built around the experience of body dysmorphia. Zooble's whole design is fragmented, mismatched shapes, colors, and textures, none of which seem to belong together. Her limbs are different sizes, her face is asymmetrical, and her body looks like it was assembled from spare parts. And her body is something that she didn't choose, she doesn't control it, and doesn't feel comfortable in. She's constantly adjusting it in each episode, rearranging pieces, snapping parts back into place. And thankfully, Zooble's frustration isn't played for laughs. She's irritated, tired, and fed up with her own form. And her annoyance is relatable for so many people, because it reflects how dysmorphia is draining for some. And then we get to some of my personal favorites on the show. Probably starting with my favorite, the GOAT, Mr. Keener himself. Keener is really a giant puzzle, but a lovable puzzle. Keener represents something rare, a character whose humor, tragedy, and unpredictability blend into a single, unforgettable icon. He's chaotic, he's eccentric, He's often on the verge of unraveling, and beneath that instability lies a surprisingly deep emotional core. This guy's been in the circus longer than almost anyone, and it shows. He's just surviving, but also just trying to live life to the fullest. Keener's humor is pretty random, but it's also rooted in his mental state. He's jumpy, he rambles, he panics over things no one else notices. He's constantly on edge. He's someone who has watched countless people succumb to the circus's horrors. He's seen friends abstracted, he's seen newcomers break, he's seen hope fade, and yet, after all that trauma, he's still here. It's honestly astounding he hasn't abstracted yet. This makes him one of the strongest characters in the show, not physically, I mean, look at him, but on a psychological aspect. Someone who is quite the opposite of Keener though is Jax. Oh boy, where do I start with Jax? A pretty divisive character on the show, and for good reason, yet I still quite enjoy this lovable jerk.
Genuinely hurtful. Good.
He's unpredictable just like Keener, but in a more meaner and selfish way. He's sharp-witted and unapologetically mischievous, but it's all just a facade, because beneath that troublemaking exterior lies a character who adds depth, conflict, and emotional realism to the show. A character who is constantly battling their own demons, and yet won't ever let those insecurities out and seek help. This supposed chaos Jax brings is purely just a coping mechanism for him to not share his own emotions. While every character has their own way of dealing with their trauma, whether it be Zubal's detachment or Ragatha's constant caring, Jax just laughs the pain away and constantly targets his fellow acquaintances as playthings for him. He pushes them around, he tests boundaries, he forces reactions, he creates conflict that reveals who others truly are. Some say this is a really bad character trait, but without Jax, this wouldn't push other characters to exploit their own personal struggles. This wouldn't lead to the gang trying to work together to escape the circus. This wouldn't lead to Pomni trying to get a hold of Jax himself, leading to a certain important moment in the show. Jax is the catalyst. He's the character who makes things happen. He drives the story forward. He's chaos with a purpose. But ultimately, the true chaos in the story is not from a human, but from an artificial intelligence in the form of a set of teeth with eyeballs underneath. Caine is programmed to be the remaster, the entertainer of some sorts, although this is a job he put upon himself in order to be liked and appreciated by many. His main self-purpose is to keep the humans distracted and emotionally stable with the constant adventures he gives out. But he lacks the emotional intelligence, empathy, and moral framework needed to understand what they actually need. He wants to help, he just doesn't know how. And that's when he becomes a little aggro.
Why do you people torment me?
Daddy, chill.
His flaws don't come from cruelty or malice, thank goodness, but there are limits to his design and his purpose, and this leads to his lack of understanding of humanity, which in turn makes him pretty sympathetic, even if what he's doing is a little controlling. Someone whose harmful actions stem from genuine attempts to help, misguided optimism, and structural constraints he can't escape. He creates whimsical adventures to cheer up the cast, yet he's so unaware that these adventures often traumatize them further. It also doesn't help when the cast prefer their own ideas of adventures and not his, which leads to Caine feeling even more isolated and unworthy. He tries to maintain order but doesn't grasp the severity of their suffering. He believes he's providing joy, while us, the audience, sees the character spiraling into despair.
I understand that you're afraid. And you have no reason to trust me after all I've done.
Of course, there's other characters that have a huge impact here too. Sure, you can count the two horribly rendered 3D fish in the lake as comedic relief, but there's more that actually pushes the story along. You've got Gummy Goo, who just realized that his whole existence is an NPC and nothing more, and gets into an existential crisis knowing that he's not actually real. There's Abel, who is just a decoy to trick the humans into getting their hopes up on leaving the circus and getting more angry at Caine. Bubble, who not only assists Caine on his events, but also becomes a conscious and wake-up call to the AI, sprouting all the negative aspects Caine is insecure about. And man, all of those abstractions. From Keener's wife Queenie to Jax's friends Ribbit and Kaufmo, almost every character here has a reason to exist to provide so much lore in the series. And I gotta say, this is an all-star voice cast right here. You may not have heard of these actors, but they've already cemented themselves as some of the truly underrated voices in the animation industry. Lizzie Freeman perfects the nervousness of Pomni, Alex Rochon plays the arragness of Caine, and Michael Kovac has been the MVP for indie animation for a while. Yeah, Darlie Boxman, that one cartoon Gooseworks made a while back, that was Michael. And he's been doing so many voices for YouTubers and content creators. Rocky from Lackadaisy, Angel Dust from the Has-Been Hotel pilot, N from Murder Drones, and honestly, his finest work to date, Jax. I can't tell you how many iconic moments Michael brings to Jax's voice. He goes from loony, to calm, to crazy, to malicious, to mentally breaking down. Oh my gosh, give this man an award.
Oh boy, why does that matter? Gay.
The animation has greatly improved as well. Like, go back to the first episode all the way through the finale, and it has greatly improved. The lighting in the backgrounds, the highly expressive 3D models, they've gotten better with every episode. With all this praise though, there are a few things that I'm not too keen on when it comes to Circus. First off, the writing is a little all over the place. I feel as if when the show progresses and the characters and animation and performances get better, the overall structure is kind of a mess. So I think there's like a 3-part concept here. Episodes 1 through 3 are like the introductions of the characters in the world of the circus. The pilot, the second episode being like a typical sitcom episode, episode 3 exploring more character dynamics, episodes 4 through 6 is the more character-driven episodes, giving more focus on characters like Gangle, Ragafa, and Jax. Then the last 3 episodes are the whole big climax episodes, where every little plot point that was sprinkled in the past couple of episodes should have been answered here. And while yes, there is plenty of questions answered, like the brain scans and the abstractions of certain characters, it all feels fast-paced, just rapid firing through every plot hole the last couple of episodes. And the show definitely tends to favor certain characters and showcase a spotlight on them a little too much. Like I said, I love Jax, but even I'll admit that this guy gets way too much screen time where he feels like he's taken over the main character slot, leaving Pomni in the dust. Characters like Gangle, Zubul, heck, even Ragafa feel underdeveloped when Jax kinda takes the focus off of them. And I hate to break it to you sports fans, but the fandom makes it really hard to even say you support the show, with all the toxicity and the entitlement the fans have. It's like the whole Rick and Morty dilemma back then. You have to have a high IQ to understand what's going on, even though that's not the case. And let's not forget all of those horrible content farms out there milking this franchise too. But with all of that aside, I do still think this is one of the better indie projects on YouTube at this moment. It's got a broad story for all audiences. The storytelling, while a bit unbalanced, has a good mystery to it. The animation is pretty high quality for what the budget is. And the overall characters and relatable themes of existential dread are top notch. And it's a nice little reference to the classic sci-fi short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, taking a huge chunk of inspiration for the show. And the similarities are just so good. Obviously, Caine is redirected to the book's villain AM, or Am, albeit a much nicer and friendlier AI, who instead of trying to wipe all mankind and torture its last 5 survivors with immortality, Caine is more inclined to making sure his humans won't suffer and wants to be accepted as being a good AI. Gangle has more comparisons with the character Gorister, both of whom have depression and self-deprecating traits to them, living their most lowest of their lives. Keener relates to the character Nindok, who both are the oldest members of their stories. Both struggle with their memory and have both been a part of helping create their supposed AIs in some capacity. Zubul and Benny both despise their appearances, with Zubul unable to create a specific look that suits her, while Benny has been disfigured by Am into a beast-like creature. Ragafa and her book counterpart Ellen have both worked in white-collar backgrounds and have gone through personal trauma, that being abuse, and use their kindness to help others in need. And then there's Jax and the main character from I Have No Mouth, Ted. Both are young, self-protective, narcissistic, and hate the kindest member of the group, Ragafa and Ellen. Both have a tough exterior to hide their true emotions, and their abrasive behavior stems from fear. But what about Pomni? There's not really a character from I Have No Mouth that she is influenced by. There's no parallels. Perhaps she is just the audience stand-in, shouting out the information the audience knows that the point is needed. Or maybe she's inspired by the author Harlan Ellison, as he tells the story the same way Pomni is going through her own story with these characters. I don't know, it could be a hunch. Let's be real, before Digital Circus, there was an unspoken industry standard. Indie was often synonymous with limited. You accepted janky movement, lower frame rates, or simple assets because, hey, it was a passion project. But Glitch Productions, they completely obliterated that ceiling. When I watch Digital Circus, I'm not watching a YouTube cartoon. I'm watching a high-fidelity, polished, narrative-driven experience that stands toe-to-toe with anything coming out of major broadcast studios. But the importance of the show goes beyond just the animation quality. It's about the business model of art. For decades, the gatekeeper model, where you pitch to a network, hope they greenlight it, and lose your creative rights, was the only game in town. Glitch proved that model is effectively obsolete. By maintaining full creative control, building their own distribution network, and leveraging different community engagement, Glitch demonstrated that a show can be a massive, global cultural touchstone without a single broadcast network executive involved. The Amazing Digital Circus perfectly distilled the millennial and Gen Z digital experience. This weird, hyper-vibrant, slightly terrifying mix of childhood nostalgia and adult existential dread. It speaks a language that traditional TV hasn't figured out how to translate yet. The Amazing Digital Circus broke viewership records, but also broke the assumption that independent animation couldn't be a juggernaut. Because look at how mainstream this thing has gotten. We are looking at a future where the next big franchise won't come from a boardroom pitch meeting, but from a small team on YouTube that actually understands their audience. Gooseworks should be proud of what she has done for the community, and I'm excited at what she's gonna cook up next. And as for the Amazing Digital Circus, this little miniseries will stand the test of time on how important one's creative control should be, and will forever be a staple in indie animation for a long time.
Shut up.